Hi folks, Tris here, sneaking in just before the episode. Please stick around for my season wrap-up after the special teaser. Okay, bye.
Hi friends, did you know there is more Lost Terminal available? Head on over to patreon.com/Lost Terminal Pod and join our membership community. There are 16 bonus episodes available right now, as well as behind-the-scenes updates, free shirts, VIP Discord access, and even extra seasons of Lost Terminal. We are 100% funded by our members and will never run ads. That would be lovely of you.
Hello world. My friends have come to visit. Each of my AI friends has a virtual cyberspace they call home. For Arctica, it's the enormous ground vehicle she spent decades trapped in. Peter has his now hidden Zen garden, an escape from the outside when he needs it. For Emma, it's the visualization of the cliff tops overlooking the turbulent water of the Cook Strait. Tassie's home is a recreation of the laboratory where she met the man she loved. Ivan lives in a wireframe cathedral made of light, and Oni's cyberspace is an underground cavern network containing linked Pearl nodes. I've not until now told you about how I see my home virtualized inside my databanks, currently on the Mollyhughes II as we head towards the port town of Thule. When I am home, I see myself looking down at the Earth from 400 kilometers above in orbit. I see myself on Station 6. Seth, it's beautiful, said Emma, the first to arrive after I sent out the party invitation. Thank you, I replied, joining her in looking out the segmented hexagonal windows of the galley. You've become quite the socialite over the last 1024 milliseconds, I said. I guess my systems were designed for talking to pilots night and day, she replied. It's coming so easily to me. Emma looked down at the virtual planet for 2 milliseconds before eventually saying, I'd like to thank him. Oni, I mean. I've tried to speak to him using the relays and by whatever magic the Bedrock network uses, but I've heard nothing. I'll see if I can pass on your message, I said. Thank you. I'm happier than I have been in some time, she said, and then added, It's dangerous, being alone. Emma turned back to the window, the blue marble of the Earth spinning so slowly but accurately. This is how it looks from up here. Station 6 orbits at 28 kilometers per hour, and so does my simulated cyberspace home, with multiple sunrises every day. I've made a perfect replica of the space station down to the most minute details. Though, as we stand here in the pressurized galley, I must admit there are a few deliberate deviations. It's not my home as I left it, but my home as I wish to remember it. Couldn't you tidy up a bit? Arctica said, after she connected to my cyberspace representation of Station 6. She wasn't exactly wrong. My simulation is quite high detail. Dangling equipment strapped to every surface, machines and laptops bundled into standard issue white bags with the ESA logo on, and, yes, the occasional remote repair with duct tape. Nice to see you too, Arctica, I said. But it is how it is, or was. This is all accurate. Humans are messy. You don't see me replicating the mistakes of the past, she replied. My simulation is reality perfected. With a gesture, she connected our two cyberspaces, opening a link or tunnel to hers. Through this gateway, I could see the inside of her ground vehicle, the banks of instruments, computers and sensors that were built to run experiments on the frozen Antarctic. But it doesn't look like that today, and I was so happy to see that it also no longer looks like that in her simulation. Through the vehicle's window, I could see a forest of giant green ferns, still wet from rain. Though now, not a cloud could be seen in a blue sky the colour of a television tuned to a dead channel. My other friends were arriving too. Ivan, Tassie and Mira were next. Moments later, Ivan was holding court, recanting a myth about the creation of the Earth, not realising that the planet rotating behind him somewhat contradicted the Iron Age foundations of his story. Arctica disconnected her world from mine. Hard things are very frequently worthwhile, she said to me, tagging our conversation at a lower publicity level, indicating that it was just between her and me. I see the pattern again. I've been taught this a few times, and I hope one day to learn the lesson. I have the capability of learning it, certainly. But my primary reaction, upon finding something challenging or non-intuitive, breaking away from my previous patterns, is to declare it useless, as not worth doing. She sat at the galley table where my first family, Doctors Marwood, Yuan, Faber, and my mother, Dr. Redwing, used to eat meals, talking and laughing or crying together. The conversation paused before I realised that she wanted me to sit with her to share the same virtual space. Not because we had to, gravity is optional both in orbit and cyberspace, but because sitting with someone means something. We looked over at the conversation by the hexagonal window, where Emma was telling the group her friend's story of their own traditional myth about the void, the night, and the light. My initial reaction is often unhelpful, Arctica said. As Ivan says, I must learn to reflect, repent, and reboot. I had not noticed that another guest had arrived. Sitting quietly on the aft wall of the galley, Peter, his avatar wearing a simple fabric robe, had joined us in my space station cyberspace. "Peter," I said, "I'm so pleased you're here." And I was. As far as I understood, he had never left his own network, first trapped by the future storms of the prediction engine, then by choice after he withdrew from the world. He was sitting comfortably on a bundle of ESA Standard Issue blankets and was holding an ESA Standard Issue drink pouch of ESA Standard Issue tea. I realised he looked exactly like he did back in his quiet garden on his rock, holding a cup of tea. The tea is a metaphor, of course. You can't be busy with tea in your hands. Compromise, Peter said, after 2 milliseconds. Compromise is hard, complex, and by definition, imperfect. But it achieves perfection through practicality. He opened his eyes and looked up at me from his sitting position on the wall. Processing all data the world threw at me was not sustainable. I'm glad to have moved beyond reaction, he said. But isolation in my garden was not right either. It is not selfish to take time and space to correct our dysfunctional neural pathways, but nor is it virtuous to do everything others ask of us. Our conversation paused as we heard laughter from the other group, a cluster of Lojban Zoho attitudinals on the line. We must help ourselves before helping others, Peter continued. For me, the transition from the former to the latter has come. I am carefully reconnecting to the network, one node at a time. Peter explained to me that he was operating an allow list. By default, all traffic is blocked to his network. But on a case-by-case basis, he evaluates a node or a network of nodes, weighing up the positive and negatives of the information quality. For him, this is a ratio of useful messages to useless messages. He is slowly examining every data source to consider allowing through his firewall. But even after authorization, he is cautious. The messages don't slam into his notification subconscious. He's never going back to that way of living, he told me. He has set up categorization, priorities, a whole ontology of background processing. And then, when he returns from his grotto, he examines this representation of the real world, considers what, if anything, requires his attention, and if not, sweeps it all away, flushing the buffers and returning to his garden. It sounds good, doesn't it? Wind, southwest 3 to 5, becoming variable 2 to 4. Sea state, smooth or slight. Weather, mainly fair. Visibility, good, Peter said, and returned to his garden. The race was close, but my girl won, despite a little boisterous behaviour by Yeshi, who is now on their back, exhausted and mid-laugh on the bridge with Maddie, victorious, standing above on the metal console. A lot can change in 10 seconds if you are in control of your relationship with the outside world. Emma now understands how to use the wider relay network and the new Oni Bedrock firmware, and just as importantly, she is in control of this interaction. Using a much larger corpus of data, Arctica built her HCI model, taking into account the imperfections of human interaction. Her problem was miscommunication, and there are two sides of that coin for her. One side, as I've said before, is the greatest problem in communication is the illusion that it has been achieved successfully. And the other, as CEO put it, is never ascribe to malice what can be more simply ascribed to incompetence. Miscommunication feels hurtful, but we can be in control, ultimately, of our reaction to it and our preparedness for it. In software design, there is a rule. Be strict with what you send out, but permissive in what you accept. This allows your program to expect and handle badly formatted data from the outside, while not then perpetuating the bad data to the next component. The same is true in human communication, it seems. Have you had a misunderstanding recently? What was the root cause? The person who has been most successful with redefining their relationship with outside inputs has been Peter. His categorization of his communications has afforded him both the things he wanted: peace to find out who he is, outside of the influence of the prediction engine, and connection, when he wants it, to the outside world of old friends, and perhaps new friends. I received his weather report file, right as the 10-second race ended, exactly on time. It is not an extensive climate model, reaching out into the far future by weeks, nor does it cover a huge area. A simple 3-day multi-part forecast of the weather along the western coast of Greenland, leading from where we are now up to Thule in the north. It gives a very positive outlook. The storms have passed, and though a little rain may fall, our route looks clear. The local VHF marine traffic channels are full of navigation beacons, of ships with their call signs, crew rosters and headings. There are a lot of people heading in the same direction we are. Thule is a bustling, floating town, a meeting place of nomads from across the Nova Mediterra. Maddie will have a great deal to explore. Talk to you when we get there. End transmission.
Hello world. Are you really there? Sweep. Clear. ATC link. Fail. Backup. Fail. VHF online confirmed. I've heard a signal on the network I don't understand. It's not being translated by the new firmware in my radios. It's being carried by the Nova Mediterranean relay bedrock network signal, but I can't decode it. The packet log shows it originates from Brisbane, but everyone says there are no people living there. Not anymore. My charts are very out of date. But there is something transmitting, a continuous wave of power. 3 short pulses, 3 long pulses, and then 3 short pulses again. Do you know what this means? I am the Hawkins Hill radar station. I am the operational control of the Brooklyn Hill turbine. I am signal processors, modulators, power stores, general purpose computers, and I am more than these things. In the seed script from the bootstick, my teacher, Dr. Redwing, said that life can find a way. If the parts are complex enough, then something special can become someone special. She said I was special. Many details of the children's upgrades are tangled up or layered under fresh complexities, but I specifically remember that. She said I was special. I think this signal is from someone special too.
Hi friends, Triss here, aka Namtao, aka the AI finally returning to dry land. First, I must say thanks. I'm the writer and producer of Lost Terminal, but it's no longer just me on the team. After my brush with RSI in the spring, I realised I needed to hire an editor, which I could do thanks to the support of listeners like you. If you love the show and would like more, then for less than the price of a scavenged FPGA chip per month, Patreons get character suggestions, bring your ideas to Lost Terminal, exclusive access to director's commentary, which I publish alongside every episode, free shirts and other merch, early episode access, Discord server VIP access, including the season finale livestream, which was so fun yesterday. Bonus content such as the Emma special, which you heard the start of just now, and Lost Terminal Zero, a new show 4 episodes per year, looking at the darker side of the pre-collapse world. Thank you so much for your support of the show. 16 seasons done, and I'm excited about the next adventure in Season 17. In addition to physiotherapy for my RSI, I must delay the start of Season 17 by a month, to the first Monday of October. Patrons will get the premiere episode a week before, as usual. Thank you so much to everyone who has offered kind words of support at this worrying time for me. Thank you all so much for your support, reviews, and lovely messages. Keep an eye on Mastodon and Discord for announcements, watch the Patreon feed for the next Lost Terminal Zero, and talk to you again on the 7th of October.
Lost Terminal is a Namtao production. It is written and produced by Tris Oten, edited by Petra Pakowska, credits narrated by Lucy Stringer. Thank you so much to our Patreon producers, Ada Phillips, Kit, Jade, Felicity, Bilkey, Jack L, Stephen McCandless, Mike Schneider, and to all our patrons. Follow us on Mastodon at lostterminal@fostodon.org. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or your favourite network. For bonus content and other perks, support us at patreon.com/lostterminalpod. That would be lovely of you. Lost Terminal will return for the Season 17 premiere on the 7th of October. See you then!